Have you ever wondered if the way you see the world is the only way to see it? Or what if? What if the reality you feel on the inside could actually start to reshape the world on the outside? We're going to dive into that very idea through a story called The Sovereign Geometry. Our story begins with this incredible line. There was once a boy who lived in a house where the clocks didn't tick, they breathed. Right away, you just know this isn't going to be a story about mechanics and rules. It's about something alive, something magical. And this first part, it's all about our main character as a little boy. We're told that between the ages of 1 and 7, he literally owned the world. I mean, think about that feeling, right? That kid-like sense that anything is possible. He didn't have a single coin in his pocket, but he walked through the garden like he personally commissioned a sunrise that morning. And that was his secret, a secret most of us are taught to forget as we grow up, that the kingdom, your reality, it belongs to the one who truly sees it. It was never about possession. It was always about perception. But that kind of pure perception, well, it rarely lasts, does it? As the boy got older, the story says the world began to leak. The rigid, grown-up world of spreadsheets and price tags started seeping in, and it demanded something from him. It told him he had to trade his inner glow for a paycheck. And this glow, it's that natural confidence, that ability to see the world's beauty, not just its price. And this is that moment, when the world leaks. He was taught to look at a piece of glass and only see what it cost, never his own reflection staring back. The magic just got swapped out for a transaction, and the result? The boy, who was now a man, became tired and just hollowed out. And just look at the contrast. The boy who owned the world became the man who was just leaned on by others. The boy who saw his own reflection became the man who only saw a price. He'd sit in these rooms that felt thin, surrounded by people who leaned on his spirit until he was completely empty. And this $50 million became the symbol of his new reality. He'd look at the price tags of the life he dreamed of and just feel like a ghost standing outside a locked gate. The world wasn't his kingdom anymore. It was just a store with prices he could never afford. And there's a name for this feeling, this spiritual exhaustion. The story calls it his charge. You know, it's that vital energy, that spiritual battery that powers you. And he could feel it just draining out of him. But right at his lowest point, something shifts. One evening, the man finds himself wandering into an old library. You can almost smell it, right? Rain and ancient leather. He sees this massive brass globe, and in this moment of just quiet desperation, he reaches out and spins the world with one finger. And then, a voice from the shadows. You're looking at the distance. What an incredible thing to say. He's not just looking at a globe. He's obsessing over how far away his dreams feel. The man turns, and there's this old architect, this mysterious figure, just sitting there in the dark. But the man, he's still trapped in that old way of thinking. He replies, I'm looking at the cost. The numbers are too high. The walls are too thick. All he can see are the barriers, the price tags. And this is the heart of the entire story. The architect leans forward and just completely reframes everything. The numbers aren't high, he whispers. Your eyes are just out of focus. He says, you think you are a beggar trying to buy a palace. You don't realize you're the king's son who simply forgot he was the heir. The problem was never outside of him. It was a forgotten identity. And the architect, he embodies this power. The firelight hits his face, what the story calls his sovereign mask, a face of just perfect, unshakable calm. It's the outside world reflecting a man who is in complete command of his inner world. So how do you reclaim a kingdom you forgot you had? Well, the architect is about to reveal the secret. He calls it a sovereign geometry. He walks over to a window, but he doesn't point at the sky. He points at the window frame itself. Look at that angle, he says. That is a right angle, he says. It doesn't apologize for being sharp. It doesn't leak. And here's the kicker. It holds the weight because it is in alignment with the stars. Its strength doesn't come from fighting gravity. It comes from being perfectly aligned with the fundamental order of the universe. And then the architect looks right at the man and says, that is your prayer. That is your geometry. And in that one instant, something just clicks. The man looks again, and he realizes that right angle is his own inner alignment. Suddenly, it's not a window anymore, it's a portal. The architect then lays out the whole blueprint. First, desire the form. It's okay to want the Bentley, the fortress. But second, you have to build the interior first. He says, drive your mind like it's already wrapped in hand-stitched leather. Third, use precision. Build your soul with the care of a master craftsman. And finally, the result. If the inside is right, the outside has no choice but to follow. The outer world has to conform to the inner structure.
The man can feel that old glow coming back. But he has one last doubt. But I don't have the keys. The architect's response is just perfect. The keys are a formality. The possession happened the moment you stopped asking for permission to exist. See, ownership isn't something that's given to you. It's something you declare.
And with that, the architect hands him a book, and the man walks back out into the night. On the outside, nothing has changed. The world is exactly the same. But inside of him, something fundamental has shifted. The heir was finally awake. So what exactly shifted? The story calls it moving the zero mark. And what is that? Well, think of it as the fundamental starting point of your perception. It's the internal lens you see reality through. It's not about changing the world, it's about changing the lens. His old zero mark, his default setting, was lack. He was the beggar staring at the high-price tags on walls he couldn't get through. But now, with his zero mark shifted to air, that entire view of the world just crumbled. With this new perception, he looked at shadows and saw poetry. He looked at chaos and saw secret doors. He goes home to his tiny apartment, but he doesn't see it like that anymore. No, he sees the foundation of a grand estate. His inner geometry was so strong that his reality was sealed from the inside out. And this brings his journey full circle. He was no longer chasing the light. He was the one glowing. He'd finally reclaimed that glow he lost as a boy, not by changing his life, but by changing himself. And so this story leaves all of us with one final critical question. Where have you set your zero mark? Is your starting point set on what you're missing, or is it set on the kingdom you already possess?